How are you? Last time we met, I was treating you in my house at Dunwitches Marshes. And I see that the treatment had the desired effect on your psyche. I notice you more relaxed than that night. It's always good to see an old friend doing well. However, I got concerned when you called me to talk about your growth of interest in the occult arts. See, I might very well recommend you to the university and accept you as an apprentice under my tutelage. Nevertheless, I think it will be appropriate first to tell you the story of how it all started in my life. After all, not everyone can handle the depth of the affairs we address. Neither with the paradigm shift that studies promote, since they snatch our everyday way of understanding the world and society, because they are different of the way our sociological, psychological, and religious sciences currently can understand. My interest in occultism came during my infancy. As a child, I hung out with my friends Walter and Arta once by my father's farm. It was a beautiful farm to the west of Providence, with a gorgeous forest, a pond, and an eggplant plantation near the house. We talked about school, about the opera that will soon premiere in the city, and also about the horror stories that my Uncle Desmond used to tell me. After a long walk through the forest, we saw an old house made of stones in ruins. It seemed mysterious and reminded me of a cursed house, of a story I once heard. We were interested in exploring the place, so we went down some broken stone steps and began investigating a filthy underground hall. There, I found in a small wooden box a translucent, dark and bright stone. Suddenly, at that very moment, I've heard one of my friends shouting in pain. Accidentally, he has his back pierced by something sharp. It was dark. We could not see right. And as I groped my way to Walter on the dirty floor, I've heard something that thrust me in my place. It was a female voice which whispered softly as if speaking in my ears.
Help me. I'm stuck here.
Confused and frightened, I asked everyone to return to care for Walter's injury. We all returned in a hurry to treat our injured friend. Walter had suffered a deep perforation at the height of his left collarbone and had a high fever that night. What happened that night disturbed him so much that Walter never wanted to talk about this subject again. In the living room where we were gathered, I asked Arthur if he heard a strange voice in that place. But his parents got angry and demanded me to stop playing around. Atta seemed troubled. He was huddled and hugging the waist of his mother on the couch. Everyone was astonished and seemed to blame me for what happened. I never told anyone about the stone I had found. It was beautiful, perhaps valuable. But I was confused, and I left it where it was, by the ruins. However, there was something that did not abandon me when I left that place. On the same night of the incident, the voice continued speaking to me, but only when I was alone. Throughout that night, that voice whispered in my ears. It insisted that I should return to the ruins, asked me to do favors to it. In exchange, it promised wealth, long life, wisdom, things that at that moment did not interest me. I was just a child. At first, I answered that I would be back soon, although I did not intend to return to that place. The next day, my father and the families of our friends went back to the town of Providence, where we all lived. I lost touch with Arthur. He was from another school. I discovered later that his mother forbade him to see me again. On the days that followed, I kept communicating with that voice. And although I did not trust it, I was afraid of counteracting it. Every night I dreamed of that place. I dreamed of a family living there. In that house that turned into ruins. I dreamed mostly with the girl, and unlike the rest of the individuals that dwelled on the house, in those dreams that girl realized my presence and interacted with me. Her name was Justine. She told me it was still there, that she was alive. But she was trapped there. She said I needed to get her out of there because she could not stand it anymore. Justine's voice was the same voice I was hearing in my head all of those days. And as much as this phenomenon disturbed me, after 2 weeks, my feelings for Justine had changed. For some reason I can't explain, I was in love. However, even in love with that girl, sometimes I did not feel honesty in her words. It was as if she was hiding something from me. Over time, I began being concerned that perhaps she was not who she claimed to be, and that she was drawing me to that place again with another purpose. What happened to Walter was still odd to me. A year has passed, and my dreams with her and the ruins have become ever less recurrent. I began to feel increasingly free of that commitment. Maybe Justine was forgetting me. I began to think that maybe I had suffered a temporary schizophrenia because of the trauma in the ruins. In my father's conversation with my uncle, I had heard something about a boy he was treating of schizophrenia, and in a way relieved of the burden of that commitment. I resumed my studies in high school. And met Clara, my wife. We started dating. Hidden from her parents that did not allow she to get involved in a relationship because of her young age. A few months went by before we heard about Arthur again. He was missing. There were searches for him in the city, but he was never found. I talked to Walter about what happened. He said that Arthur had changed. Walter said that he was saying nonsense and was having specialized treatment. According to him, Arthur certainly was reading a lot of nonsense. It was on a winter afternoon. My father asked me to accompany him on a trip to the farm because my mother was in my aunt's house at Boston, and he did not want me to be alone at home. That same night, I went back to dream about the ruins, but without that voice. The year was 1918, and I was 15. It was on a Saturday morning. My father woke me up to prepare for the trip. It was still dawn, and we took the road on my father's old Ford T. When we surpassed the limits of the city, he told me selling the farm. I felt a relief to hear those words, because that meant that this was going to be the last time I returned to that farm. So I imagined that my father will just sign some papers, shake some hands, and we should return at sunset. As we traveled, I leaned over the front seat and fell asleep. I dreamed about her. In that dream, we were sitting on the balcony of the farmhouse. Her frown expressed concern. Her long black hair was moving in the morning breeze. Looking at me, a sideways glance, she said softly,
This is your last chance.
I had the impression of seeing a teardrop slipping down her cheek. I woke up then, due to a car bump in the road. It was almost noon. I was hungry, and the relief I felt earlier was replaced by a growing anxiety. We arrived at the farm in the early afternoon. After lunch, my father took a horse to go to the neighbor's farm, where he will meet with the stakeholders. I remember that my father was very clear when he told me, "Stay here, Charles." But I knew I would not have another chance to put an end to my distress. I needed to find out if the girl for whom I had fallen in love was real. When I saw his horse down the hill, I went to the shed, grabbed a machete hanging from the sheath by the wall, and ran north toward the woods. I ran for a few hours. When I finally got there, I was exhausted. The place seemed to me a little different than I remembered the last time I was there. The bush had grown and was high, almost hiding the stones on the ground. It did not take long until I found the entrance to the underground hall. However, the day was overcast, and it was almost late afternoon. I felt foolish to have brought a machete and not a sconce. For a few minutes, I stared at the entrance of that place, seeking the courage to get in. That's when I felt a chill on my neck to hear her voice again. It was if the wind, the rustling of leaves in the forest, and anything else in that place has suddenly stopped, and I couldn't just hear Justine whispering to me.
You are here. Thanks for coming back to get me out of my misery.
I took a deep breath, and trembling, I bent down, entering the hole. I could not see anything down there, but groping in the dark, I started going down the stairs, removing the spider webs with the machete. Coming down the last steps, I stayed, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the darkness. There were long, disquieting minutes that preceded the moment that I started seeing some outlines in the dark. It was possible to distinguish old chairs, some debris, and the walls at the beginning of the room, thanks to the faint light that reached indirectly downstairs. Soon I could hear the voice again.
Come.
I slowly walk toward the darkest part of the place.
Beware, the ground gave way, and there is a hole in front of you. Crawl around it, dear.
Kneeling on the floor, I started groping the dusty floor until I felt the hole on the ground. Crawling, I walked around until I hit my head on the door.
Open, Charles, but be careful, lest it fall over you.
I reached up until I touched the knob. Getting up from the ground, I began to pull it slowly and push the door forward. Loudly, the door opened until its hinges, finding no resistance in rotten wood, gave way. I found it safer to release the door, which fell, making a loud noise and raising plenty of dust.
Come, just a little to go.
With careful steps, I kept walking until I almost lose my balance when I heard
I'm here, right in front of you.
a thousand thoughts emerged in my mind. From trying to touch her with my hands to even strike her with the machete. But I stood still, waiting for further instructions.
Get down,
The voice said.
pick up the candle.
I groped the floor, finding a broad, cylindrical object.
Now repeat after me.
And what follows was something I took a rite, in which I just repeated strange words in a language I had never heard before. After repeating a few words, a red flame lit the candle. However, that fire, strangely, did not illuminate the room. I felt vulnerable, exposed, as if at any moment something unusual could surprise me. So that I could not react, defend myself, darkness was absolute, and something I could not understand was happening in that place through my words. The fear had overcome any and every feeling. The search for Justine was already too different from what I had expected. A few minutes later, I stopped. My silence was followed by a question.
What is it, Charles?
And then I replied, Justine, what am I doing? She replied calmly,
You are freeing myself.
After a pause, she continued,
I need you to undo the curse that imprisoned me in this place. Then we will have time for me to tell you everything.
I felt like my whole body was numb, as if I was somewhere else, perhaps in a dream. I proceeded then, carefully repeating what she said, until a disturbing noise began right in front of me. It sounded like crackling, as if a small wooden branches was being crushed, and scratching, as if clothes was getting ripped. As this happened, I felt water droplets splashing on my skin. Soon, the room was filled by a smell. It was nauseating and intense. It was like coins and wet earth. All that I was breathing had that smell. The noises continued. The water that kept being expelled upon my face began to bother me. So I tried to clean myself with my hands. I was getting soaked. But I felt a sticky touch as I tried cleaning my face. More unfamiliar words kept being uttered until something unexpected stopped me suddenly. I felt the touch of a soft, however cold hand caressing my face. As I heard Justine speaking in my mind.
Just a little bit, my dear.
My body was trembling, but I continued. Several minutes followed until there was silence again. Almost without reaction, I felt something enfolding me and restricting my arms. At the same time, I faced my perplexity. I realized with skeptic surprise that those were human arms around me. I was being tenderly embraced by someone. I slowly returned to caressing, feeling my hands to touch a soft hair and bare back. The touch of the skin was cold. For the first time I heard Justine talking to me in person.
Charles, I'm free now. Wait for me here.
Having said that, Justine released me and began to utter new words by herself. Then she said,
He is not here.
"Who?" I asked.
My father.
She replied,
I need to find him.
I felt I should support her. Me and my dad can help you. She was silent. Then she said,
Your father cannot know what happened here. Promise me, Charles.
She said those last words sternly. I promised. Then I asked, insecurely, something that was causing me great anxiety. What about now?
Now I must go.
Can I go with you?
I'm sorry, Charles, but you can't.
I felt hurt and frustrated with that answer. It's not fair, Justine. I spoke softly. I breathed nervously and said, "It's thanks to me that you were free." A disconcerting silence fell, and then she replied,
I can give you something in return. It's the only thing I have. But you will never be the same.
"What?"
This book. Everything I know. Everything my father taught me is here.
I did not come here for this book. And she interrupted me.
We will not lose contact. I like you.
Justine walked away into the hall.
Stay here.
When she returned, she took my hand and laid a stone. I recognized it by the touch. It was the stone I found the first time I went to that place.
When you touched this stone that day, you woke me up. Now, I'll make it our link in this world. While you keep this with you, we will always be able
Saying
to talk
that,
to each other.
she whispered a few unintelligible words. And a soft glow briefly emanated from the stone in my hand. Enough for me to see my hands and hers in the dark.
I insist. Take the book. Otherwise, I will not feel that I reciprocate fairly.
She walked over to somewhere close and then come back, placing the book in my hands. I still felt deceived and confused by all of it.
Let's go. We need to get out of here.
She said, holding my hands. She walked slowly, leading me out of that place. When we got out of that hole, the sun was already setting. Several facts got my attention. Even though my senses were dazed by it all. That the impact I had to absorb that moment was indeed reduced. Justine was naked. Her feet were covered in something sticky and red that I perceived that could be blood. I was also all covered by the same substance, and yes, it was blood, but not mine. That explained the smell in that place. She was beautiful, a little more white than normal. Perhaps it was the cold. Her hair was black, as in my dreams. She turned around, and I saw her face. Her eyes immediately caught my attention. They were different than I remembered. Completely black. They got me an uneasy feeling just by looking at them. Her face had fine and delicate features.
I need clothes.
So I began to undress, realizing that her request sounded like a veiled order. Anyway, I did not care. It seemed inappropriate that that girl remained bare. When I was wearing only my underwear and began to untie my shoes, she touched my shoulder, thanked me, and said she would not need them. I stood up and looked again into her eyes. She hugged me. Feeling sad, I reciprocate. Then she touched her lips on my face in an icy kiss. It was already dark out there. What happened to you and your father? I asked.
Some things should not be quiet,
She said, slowly, looking away. Why? I insisted.
because each person has its secrets, and the secret protects us from the judgment of unjust people.
I stayed in silence, realizing that I try to know of a subject that I should not. Justine raised her hand, waving me a goodbye. She turned around and left. Holding the stone tightly in my hands, I rushed toward the woods. It was very late when I reached home. I was received with astonishment by the caretaker. "Are you hurt? What happened?" I answered evasively, implying that I had fallen from a tree. I took a bath in the spout of the water tank and dressed with some old clothes from the house's wardrobe. I took a belt beating that night after my father's return. He arrived with some foremen after their failed search for myself. I made up a story about having lost myself in the woods and have fallen from a tall tree while trying to find a way back. I justified my nakedness, saying that I was very dirty after the fall and therefore I had chosen throwing them away. We took the road back to Providence that night. My father told me that he managed to sell the farm. We didn't speak another single word during the trip back. Upon arriving home, I put the stone somewhere safe and slept the entire day after. During my rest, I had a high fever and hallucinations. My thoughts seemed to not have assimilated everything that had happened. When I finally wake up, I was still tired and with my muscles very sore. Then I started reading the book that Justine gave me a few days after. She taught me almost everything I know today about occult sciences. I kept communicating with Justine for a long time, till one day she stopped responding. My story Justine did not end that way. But I will tell you this story another time. For now, I can only say that I found out what happened with her and her father, and I also discovered why. See, if on one hand human curiosity have been beneficial in sciences, with discoveries that contributed to the health and well-being of people, on the other hand, we also create more efficient ways to kill ourselves and cause suffering. Today, I see that when faced with the possibility of a new discovery, we should ask whether mankind is ready to deal with this new knowledge. For every new discovery had the potential to change the way society sees the world. The best case scenario would be that we were always ready, but we are not. I was not ready to meet Justine. I wish I had not sought to meet her. The consequences of my meddling and the neediness about her life haunt me to this day. But if one day, my noble friend, if one day you want me to teach you about what I research on the Miskatonic University, I think that in our next meeting will be an interesting opportunity for me to tell you the rest of all of this. You're sleepy. Your home is a safe place. You're safe here. Sleep well.